Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as we all do, come kick it with us already. We're doing this every single week, spanning the wide world of women's football. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen. Links to all of our socials available in the show notes of this episode. I am your host, Dino De Cespedes, and as always, I am joined by a special guest and my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
Oh, I'm feeling fantastic, buddy. And that is in part because I have the pleasure of introducing our guest today. I'm going to start this a little different from the other intros that I've done for our other Olympic preview guests. I'm going to start with a bit of an anecdote. On February 1st, 2024, in an interview with Meg Linehan of The Athletic, Lyon and Team USA midfielder Lindsey Horan said, quote, "American soccer fans, most of them aren't smart. They don't know the game. They don't understand." End quote. Horan would later go on to say, kind of walk that back and say, it's getting better and better. I bring that up to personally thank Lindsey Horan for what she did, because saying those words to a reporter led to the creation of one of the absolute best YouTube channels in the game today. Our guest is the creator and host of Busy Watching Women's Soccer, a channel that provides incredible tactical insight, mostly into the NWSL and the US Women's National Team. But you would be a fool not to check out previous videos about Emma Hayes' Chelsea side and how they were able to beat Barcelona in the first leg of the semifinal of the UEFA Women's Champions League. So, the joke's on you, Lindsey. We found an American who absolutely knows ball, and it is my great honor to welcome to the show, Bridie O'Toole.
That was quite the intro. I'd love to hear you do that again. That was great.
Take two.
Oh my gosh, welcome to the show, Bridie. We are super duper excited. This is going to be loosely our USA preview for what's going to be an awesome tournament. So Grant, I'm going to kick it back to you. Where do you want to get started?
It's been a while, buddy. I'm a little thirsty. Bridie, I apologize. We typically start these off with a frosty beverage. We don't want you to be left out. Is there any way that you could procure something to kind of get you through this?
It's wild. I usually work with beer on my desk, so I'm ready to go somehow.
Let's go. Let's go. Team USA. All right, time for the ASMR.
Does that help?
It helps with all football analysis, I believe. There we go.
Excellent.
Sounds delightful. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Okay, let's address the first big piece of news to come out kind of before the Olympics and after the roster was named. Unfortunately, Cat Macario struggling with a little bit of a knee issue in her other knee, not the ACL knee from her previous injury. Can't decide if that's better or worse. Well, maybe we'll save that for a different podcast. But Cat Macario has been dropped from the roster. She needs to focus out of rehab. Get well, Cat. And that means Lynn Williams has now been added to the squad from the reserves. She is now part of the 18. And I think that has a big impact, personally, on the structure of how this starting 11 is going to look. I think it's going to impact how the subs are going to look, obviously. And so, Bridie, when that news comes across your desk, where does your mind go?
Worried a little bit, honestly. It's not like Macario has been showing absolutely fantastic on tape over the last few games. I think you could see there's a little bit of something going on, but she's the kind of player where even with, a little bit of discomfort or whatever it is she was playing through, like, she still looks good. She's just creative. You said imaginative earlier. I mean, the ball she finds, the way she moves people across the pitch, it's definitely a loss for sure. And I think it's going to be probably noticeable in those knockout games.
Oh, sorry, Dino, you and Bridie, I forgot to mention, Dino and I have a very scientific approach of I ask a question and then he asks a question. So sometimes if you see us kind of look at each other, it's just me and Dino figuring out, like, wait, who asked the last one?
When you saw Lynn Williams was the replacement for Macario, what was your first thought there?
It makes sense. I don't love it. And we saw some midfield problems at the Women's World Cup, and I just don't think we've made a whole lot of improvement since, and that's the struggle. So there is no like-for-like replacement. There's not even a half like-for-like replacement, and that's the difficulty.
Yeah,
I can see that. Macario was pretty much supposed to be the number 10, I think, was the stated goal. Maybe not stated goal, but it was the obvious goal from the way you saw the team line up as soon as Hayes took over. Who plays number 10 now?
I really think you've only got a few options. You've got Shaw, you've got Horan, and you've got Corbin Albert. And two of those players, to me, Horan and Albert, need to have really fantastic tournaments for this to be a good tournament for the U.S. They're both very good ball distributors. They both make the team look better when they play at their best. I like Shaw a lot, but she seems like she's processing a huge amount of information constantly as she's playing. And I'd love to see her getting back to that kind of like 3 relaxed Jaden Shaw we saw, but I don't think she's ready to do the 10 yet, at least starting.
I think I've seen that as well. Watching this, so obviously we're coming off this past weekend. The USA is maybe slightly underwhelming victory over Mexico in a warm-up. I think there was some performances in this match specifically that sort of were a little bit puzzling. The first one that I drew, I'm glad she came up pretty early. Lindsey Horan was like the first name that I sort of circled around where I'm like, I know it's Lindsey Horan, and I know she's an excellent, excellent player, but something just feels a little bit like out of sync, out of rhythm with maybe it's her new spot on the field. And then I thought it was really interesting that Corbin Albert comes and takes her off and then immediately looks a lot more dynamic, a lot quicker, a lot faster of decision-making. Passing was pretty crisp. Obviously, that U.S. attack had worn down Mexico's defense for those 60, 70 minutes, which leads to the breakthrough late in the match. Did you see that, Bridie, as well? Like maybe Horan, the form that she's in, obviously they're off for the summer, in Lyon, so maybe there could be a little bit rust there. But what was your take on Horan's performance against Mexico specifically?
It wasn't a great performance. It's funny because I would actually probably be a pretty big defender of Horan. I see a lot of comments, she's too slow, she hasn't got good footwork. When I watch film, I am amazed by the amount of times I go back to the origination of the play, and it's Horan taking that ball from the defense and really starting something. It's wild how much they rely on her to do that. I think Albert has the ability to start being that person. For Horan, I don't know if it's just because she's out of season. Sometimes I feel like, especially in the friendlies, she just doesn't show up. I don't know if she's just that good and that motivated that she finds it, a little bit difficult when that level of competition isn't there. So I'm hoping that's resolved very quickly at the Olympics.
I can see that with her. I think one player that I kind of wondered, could she fill in that number 10 spot, is Rose Lavelle. And she kind of lined up as center mid at the start of this match. Dino and I have given this disclaimer all the time. When you describe a player as injury prone or talk about their health issues, it is not an indictment on their character. It just means simply that they have some availability issues. Is that kind of part of your concern? Like when you name those 3 of like Horan, Albert, and Shaw, do you think it's just you cannot rely on Lavelle to fill that role for extended minutes, especially when you have games in quick succession like this?
Yeah, I'm huge on that, saying the best ability is availability. Yep. Consistency, availability is so massive in this sport. I think she's really, really consistent in how she plays. It's the availability problem for her. But can she do it? Yes. And I think potentially if you can sub Lavelle out, at the 60th minute for someone like Albert, that could be, or maybe Shaw actually at that point, that could be really, really cool. But it's getting there.
Before we scoot ahead, any other big takeaways from last weekend's Mexico match, Bridie?
I like seeing the U.S. experimenting. I think it's really good to see them trying some new things out. The one concern I have right now is they seem like they're really only able to play as a cohesive unit in one look, one structure. And my concern is, especially what we've seen Emma Hayes do in the past, is these tiny little like tinkering adjustments that really open a game up. Kind of like I talked about in the video where they beat Barcelona. I think that's her magic is understanding how to move the chess pieces. And I think that ability is probably being taken away just by how new everything is. And that's probably my biggest concern in terms of going far in this tournament, is just not being able to offer multiple looks.
Yeah, against Mexico specifically, it looked like Swanson-Smith, that 2-player game, was what they were trying to go to kind of early and often, whether it was like Girma or Neiswanger, getting the ball upfield to them and just saying, hey, can we catch them asleep a little bit? I think Smith had a good amount of really good chances in the first half. At the start, I kind of felt like she might have been a little old school Sophia Smith, like head down, let me just let it rip, and like maybe not the more of the distributor that we've seen in the NWSL. So I think we're maybe starting to see some initial inklings of what Emma Hayes is trying to put together. I think you did a great job in your video talking about Neiswanger and Fox and how they were tilting the field one way, tilting the field back the other way, and sort of playing interchangeably from an attack standpoint. It's like, okay, well, we'll go up the right, we'll go up the left. Doesn't make any difference. The end goal is still the same.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best case scenario, To me, Mexico, when they played the U.S., it was interesting that I felt they were very focused on the right side of the pitch, especially, less so the left. And I don't know how many analysts they have. I would guess they've got over 10. They've got plenty of time and resources to look at all these games. So if they see that they've got an opportunity to use Fox on the attack on the right, I especially like when she inverts and plays the ball on the ground. I think she does such a good job with that. You want to be able to use it on certain opponents for sure.
Yeah, and I think from Mexico's opinion, Ovalle, every time I watch her play, just what a wonderful player. I would try to work from the right side too if I had Lisbeth Ovalle on that side.
Yeah, it's stunning. Yeah.
Trying to figure out my way to watch more of these Liga MX matches here for Tigres. But okay,
Can I give you a little pitch on that, Grant? Sorry.
Please.
I will say Summer Cup, I think, is going to be really interesting. There's probably going to be some really cool results that people weren't expecting. I think it's all available on TV, so definitely going to be worth tuning in for that to see more of these awesome players from Liga MX.
Yeah, no doubt. I think some of them overlap with Olympic matches as far as I could tell. But yeah, definitely on the DVR. The first thing I think every time we watch Mexico play, we talked about during the CONCACAF W Gold Cup too, is we got to see more of these players. And a quick message to the Mexican Football Federation. Dino knows I love to do this from time to time. Sorry, Mexico, this is going to be very honest. Your men's team stinks. So you need to put as many resources as you can into Liga MX Femenil and your women's national team. You're looking real US-ish in terms of how good your women's team is and how good your men's team is. So that's my little quick pitch. Sorry for that diversion.
Did you watch the Copa?
Sure did. I would be pouring the resources into the women's side.
Yeah, I would too. I sure would too.
Smart money. Okay, let's go ahead to the real reason we've all come together, which is the 2024 Paris Olympics. Now, I'm going to skip the question of what do we think the U.S.'s ceiling is or might be. I think we all think if things break the right way, gold is maybe an option. So I'm going to switch it up a little bit. Grant, I'll actually go to you first. Who would you take between the USA for the gold versus the field?
Oh, I would take the field. Spain is too good, and you're playing in France. You might have to come up against Japan. The field is absolutely loaded. And I think to Bridie's earlier point, that midfield, that center of the pitch kind of area, if you struggle there against Spain, you're finished. You have no chance of beating them.
Yeah, I mean, they have the coach to do it, right? I feel like no coach in international football who's seen more of them right now, which is fantastic. But good players play in the midfield for good reason because they make things happen. And it's just an area where you need your best players. It's not something you can compromise on as a team.
I did feel a little bit better watching Lynn Williams versus Mexico just scoot around and really just be faster and hungrier and more aggressive. And I'm like, oh my gosh, well, I think this is a big advantage. Okay, if we can wear teams down like we wore Mexico down defensively, let's say it is a Lavelle maybe later in the match, or Lynn Williams or combination of the two, Crystal Dunn, maybe you could throw her in there as well. Looked like we had a big advantage heading into the last 15, 20 minutes of that match. But I do think that defensively and in the midfield, just kind of controlling the ball, it could be really tricky. I mean, you look at Ovalle and Sanchez. If we do fast forward, actually, I do want to get to, Bridie, your USA versus the field pick. I'm not going to let you off the hook there. But just to preempt it, I do want to think about what does it look like versus Zambia when it's not Ovalle and Bernal and Sanchez and it's Banda and Kundanagi.
All right, my pick is going to come with a disclaimer in that, I like to put positive energy into the world.
Of course.
All the pieces are there for this team to win gold. They absolutely can do it if they get on a good streak and they've got good chemistry and things are just clicking. I don't know about that, all happening. So I'm going to say field with my disclaimer.
That's fair. And when they line up against that speedy front line of Zambia in the first match, in the kickoff match, to get everything started, how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, so watching the Zambia film was really interesting for me. I had no background other than what I've seen in the NWSL. So my first thought was, we see really fast, really strong players. This is going to be a transitional team that are just going to burn you with speed. And I think that was true to some extent, but the thing that really, really surprised me is they have multiple fast players. So when they have that break, it's not just one person streaking in. They've got 2, 3 players in support in really nice structures, and they're able to build off that. So they can turn really, really quickly. I think their issue is they seem to be built from the front back. So, the players that seem to be having the biggest struggles are unfortunately their defenders. their goalkeeper. From the film I watched, they were giving up a lot of opportunity just off bad touches, passes that weren't clean enough, crisp enough. So it's a toss-up. It's one of those ones where I think if you don't take it seriously and you don't do the preparation and you don't give the opponent the respect they deserve, you could very easily walk out of that game embarrassed.
I think that's a worthy point. I mean, Zambia, they had that warm-up game against Germany right before the 2023 World Cup, and they're able to pull out a couple goals at the end, and it was that transitional play that just caught Germany on the back foot. We've seen it with Banda in the NWSL. We haven't seen it as much from Kundanaji yet, but I maintain that even if the idea of Kundanaji in the NWSL hasn't really come to fruition yet, I gotta think it's on the way. And then when you fast forward a little bit to how they qualified for this tournament, for the Olympics, they had these really tough physical home and away matches against Morocco. It's exactly what you were saying. They were giving the ball away, and Morocco was not quite taking advantage of all the opportunities that they were being given. And Morocco's a good side. They made it to the knockout stage of the World Cup. But if you start to give those opportunities to Mallory Swanson and Sophia Smith, that sounds like a recipe for disaster.
100%. But also, Zambia's defense, the quality is not quite there yet, so they are creating turnovers. And it's one of those ones where, yes, it's an opportunity if you're able to get on those balls and finish off them. But if you're creating 6, 7, 8 turnovers and you're not finishing off those, I mean, that to me is equally embarrassing. So Sophia Smith is a type of player that, to me, sometimes has it, sometimes doesn't. And it's one of those games where, you really need her to turn up and put balls in the net because they're going to be just hanging around for her to pick up.
I actually went through the thought process of if Zambia is going to score against the U.S., I feel like it's going to come early. We saw them start really slow in the World Cup as well. So I think a slow start against the Zambia side could really be a little bit devastating because now you might have a Sophie Smith trying to press a little bit, and not in a literal way, but just sort of like trying to find a goal where there's not one. I could see Rodman maybe doing a little bit of the same. I'd hate to see it happen, but I could see a scenario where the U.S. maybe falls behind early against Zambia and then maybe has a little bit of a steeper uphill battle than they might be expecting.
Yeah, I don't think that's a crazy thought at all. I'm thinking back to the Japan game where they let in a really, really quick one just because of a tiny little miscommunication error. So those first 5, 10, 15 minutes of a game can be really crucial to getting settled. And you might be right. If it's going to happen, I think earlier is probably more likely.
And I think that was their lone victory in the 2023 World Cup. I think Zambia scored off a corner in like the first 3 minutes. So, yeah, they'll be kind of looking for that quick strike themselves. Yeah,
set pieces for them, also really good area of opportunity. Defensively on set pieces, they certainly look like they struggled, but offensively...
So how do we feel? Do we think we're getting past Zambia? What are we finding the draw? Is this a 3-1, 3-0 kind of like easy breezy, or how are we feeling about this first Zambia matchup?
I'm saying 3-0. I think Sophia Smith could come away with like player of the game. I think it could be just the type of game for her, or maybe like a Mallory Swanson type to really take advantage. So I'm going to will this one into existence. It's a 3-0 win.
Love it. It's a pretty solid goal differential to kick things off. Looming though, right after that Zambia matchup, just 2-3 days later, we're going to be taking on this German side that we also previewed with our guy Peter Weiss from Bully News. Go check that one out if you haven't seen it already. USA Germany. Grant, let me know, how nervous should we be about this one? Where's your head at?
Well, if you watch Germany play Iceland in the Euro qualifiers, you may think
I did.
We don't have to be that worried. 3-0 to Iceland. Un-German-like football, honestly. They conceded on a set piece. They looked confused at the back at times. They didn't finish their chances. It was I'm going to give some real high-level football analysis. It was weird watching Germany just play that way. I was just like, wait, is this the right jersey here? I do not think, and this is, again, Dino and I have joked about this before, I fully admit I have a little bit of caveman brain where when I look at the roster and I see the number of good players, I know the game's not played on paper, but when I look at that roster sheet for Germany, I cannot be convinced that they are not a good side. They have to be good. They have too many good players.
They're a great side, great players, great coaching, and they've also had just like great resources and development around their program for a long time. So I don't know. I'm like, are we at this turning point where we're seeing a giant collapse, or is this just like a weird phase? That Iceland game was painful, and I watched it knowing that they'd already qualified for the Euros and it didn't matter for them. But then I went and I looked up who was playing. It's not like they just threw out a bunch of people that have never played together. I mean, I think they were trying more people out sort of in midfield and up front. The defense was mostly who they play.
Yep, that's their back line. And they put in show favorite Nicole Anyomi from Eintracht Frankfurt. They put her up front. I think she is a reserve in the Olympics, but she's not some debutante player out there who does, like, she is a Champions League caliber player. So like I'm with you, Bridie. I was confused. I just left that match just kind of staring at the screen as at the final whistle, like, damn, 3-0 to Iceland, huh? Seems strange.
Yeah, I watched and I was like, I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, but Gunsdaughter, I was like, is she the best player ever? I don't know.
It looked like it.
Yeah.
Well, they have Glodis Vigosdottir, who's number 4 for them, who's like their just absolute badass center back. And there was one play after the first goal. I didn't see who she walks up to one of her teammates and basically like just, she's a linebacker, just headbutts her in celebration. I was just like, holy shit, like this is so hardcore. She's great. She plays for Bayern.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, like they had maybe not the full A team, but I mean, Anyomi is a real striker for sure. And she had some good chances. She was creating space early. Sarah Dorsoon had a rough day. So she was chasing pretty much all match. And I think the speed for Iceland's attackers was a real problem. I think that's going to be something that Emma Hayes absolutely will take note of. Will look to attack for sure, because Germany technically very sound. And I think our guy Peter came on and talked to us about the 2 axes, the Wolfsburg axes and the Bayern axes, and got me all psyched out a little bit. But then watching it on the field, it wasn't so tough. I think we might have something for Germany.
I love the point he made though around drawing from 2 teams, or mostly because you can see Emma Hayes doing the same thing, and she's been pretty direct in interviews. But she acknowledges she hasn't got experience here. She's trying to do as much as she can and look for opportunities. So I think she's been pretty tactful in trying to take a lot of Gotham and Spirit players and do something similar.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Any kind of chemistry that you can inject like automatically into a national team, I think that will usually work to your benefit, assuming that those players play for a good team and have had some success themselves. I will say, I mean, the classic football phrase always goes though. And again, maybe I'm going back to caveman brain with just the names on the team sheet. Never write off Germany. That is a football axiom I absolutely subscribe to. They didn't look good. I got to think that they have some revenge on their mind. It's a great point, Bridie, that they were already qualified. I don't know if that was a little bit of just, even with those players on the pitch, I don't know if that was a little bit of sleepwalking versus Iceland. Even still, not a good look, but I reserve the right to not be surprised if Germany plays well in the Olympics.
I think that's a good way to CYA. Very, very good team. They can come out and do some damage.
I think I heard some people making a similar claim about the U.S. versus Mexico. Like, okay, well, it's just a warm up. Let's just go break a sweat. But then you watch the play, and they're out there gunning. Like, from Smith and Swanson early, Sam Coffey, she's always a live wire. Neiswanger was flying up and down the field. The subs come in, they look absolutely electric. And even still, not really like kind of the breakthrough performance. I kind of laughed when, Julie Foudy was like, well, it is hot. I was just like, okay, all right, we're going to go to the heat and the weather as to kind of try to back ourselves out from what we're maybe really seeing on the pitch. So I think more generally, you zoom out the women's game globally, it just feels like every 3 months, 6 months, there's like some sort of like breakthrough and leap forward, because Iceland looked like an absolutely real team. And I think we know that there are a lot of teams out there more talented. And I think sleepwalked, whatever the past tense is of that. Anybody sleepwalking into the Paris Olympics, I think is going to be in for a massive rude awakening.
Yeah, I mean, especially for the European teams, just qualifying is a huge, huge accomplishment. I mean, I hate to kind of share my second fandom, but I'm also an England fan as well. And it's super painful to see, how do you make it to the World Cup final and then not hit the Olympics next year? It's crazy.
It's because it's hard is the only answer, really. And only a couple teams from Europe whittles it down even more. I will never forgive the organizers for robbing us the possibility of seeing Team Great Britain, where you could basically take the Lionesses, but then drop in Aaron Cuthbert from Scotland. I don't think I'll ever get over that. I want to see that in the next Olympics for sure.
Now that you mentioned it, it just wouldn't be fair. So I think I'm actually back on board with the decision.
I like it.
Yeah. ITC Hall of Famer Aaron Cuthbert.
That's correct.
All right. So we've got 3 points in the group. Goal differentials +3 heading into Germany. Let's do some roughly way too early predictions. Do we get the win here? Do we kind of eke out a draw? Does Germany like really lay the smack down a little bit and remind everybody, I think we're ranked one spot higher than the US and we're just as legitimate as any team in this tournament?
I think this group is just too competitive to come out of it without a loss. And I think being the Germans' motivation to go beat a very, very high profile team in the group stages, I think they're going to come out hard. So this will be my loss. Let's say 2-1 Germany.
Wow, incredible. Okay, I love it. Does your idea of what could happen in this change depending on what happens in Germany versus Australia in their opener?
For sure. There's one really specific thing that concerned me with Germany, and it was the spacing of their back three. There was times where I feel like they were just like not even 10 yards covering between the three of them. If they keep doing that, I don't see how you don't let in goals on the long fastballs. But if they have a completely different backfield look against Australia, then I could very happily change that.
I think that's one of the matches, the more I look at the tournament as a whole, Germany versus Australia in their opener. Because if you look at it from Australia's perspective, if you're Australia, and we'll get to them next, if we beat Germany in this first match, then we get Zambia. And if we can take Zambia, we might not even have to get a result against USA in the third match. I am really, really fascinated. I think they might be playing at the same time, so I'll have to DVR and go back and watch. But I think that is right now for opening day. I think that might be the match I'm looking forward to second most.
Yeah, it's a great group, great matchups, and I think those teams will probably be fairly evenly matched in the sense that they're both well coached and they both got good players. They look very different, they play very different, but I think those are the best games. You know, it's kind of like a chess match where nobody moves when both teams go out in the same look and do the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I could see Australia's speed giving Germany some problems, which might, give Germany an opportunity to adjust heading into the US match. It's almost like a really good warm up for them. I can definitely see this one 2-2 because I agree with you, Bridie. I think the German defense is absolutely gettable. We didn't mention Merle Franz, but she definitely made a mess of things a couple times against Iceland. I don't expect that to continue necessarily, but I'll say she's not playing her best ball at the moment.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point because Peter Weiss, I think, made it pretty clear that he doesn't think Berger is going to be starting, but she's played really, really well. She was involved in some of the Euro qualifying games, and she's been in training day in, day out with the U.S. players, so I wouldn't be 100% shocked to see her play that game. I don't think it's likely, but I wouldn't be shocked.
That'll be very interesting. That'll be something for the tabloids over there in Deutschland. I think they will be very curious to see who gets those minutes. And I'll be interested to see, too, you talk about the speed, Dino, of Australia. They're going to try to rely on that. When England beat Australia in the semis of the World Cup, they held the ball for 58% of the match. And so I think if you're Germany, you might want to try to look at, can we just play keep away from Australia and try to get long stretches where we're holding the ball, we're forcing them to run, trying to wear out their defenders, wear out their midfield, and try to negate that speed in some way. Judging from the way they played against Iceland, you might have your doubts on if they're able to do that, but it could be a strategy they try to employ.
I think actually that is the strategy to go with. One thing I noticed when watching Australia, we know that they've developed that fantastic long ball that's designed for Kerr. We know they have fast players and they can continue doing it. But the one thing I noticed is nobody else just seems to have the nose for it that Sam Kerr does. So you'll see somebody start running and then just kind of have to peel off and come back because the run wasn't timed right or somebody didn't see it or whatever the reason was. But they're going to get tired because I was just watching them go again and again and again. And it's really demotivating as a player making those runs and not getting the ball because mentally you have to continue to show the run and it's a difficult situation. So yeah, I think that is absolutely the way to tire them out.
So yeah, that's a great point. And you mentioned, so now Australia, let's get to the final match, USA versus Australia. They have to do it without Sam Kerr. Obviously you're losing one of the 4 best players in the world, probably at worst. What does it do to your side when you lose that player?
I mean, that sort of disappointment and sort of like that maybe your faith drops a little bit, and that can be difficult, but there's always that opportunity for you as a player to say, this is my time to shine. This is my time to prove that I can be a starter. It's an opportunity. It is what you make it. So they have a lot of really, really great players on that squad. I'm a huge fan of Rasso. I'm a huge fan of Vine. NWSL fans are going to be so excited watching this Olympics and realizing they're about to get Vine and a healthy Caroline back. That is very exciting for Courage fans.
Do you think there's something to, I know we were sort of jumping around here a little bit, but we talked a little bit about Merle Froms and Ann Katrenberger. We opened the show talking about Lindsey Horan as well. Do you think there's something to maybe the NWSL crowd being a little sharper, a little bit more in rhythm, maybe the fitness being a little higher than the players coming off the end of the Champions League season and the European season more generally?
100%, because I think as this game has gotten more professional, the differentiator between being in season and out of season has become a lot more clear. I'm guessing you guys have been watching a while, like back to the Sweden days when everybody would overwork themselves playing in multiple leagues. So, having a true off season now is a great thing, and you're focused on strength and conditioning, putting on the muscle that you're going to lose in season. So, yeah, I mean, for sure, I think being on form, just kind of having recent success under your belt, I do think that is going to hopefully help out the NWSL players a little bit.
I'll say you give us a little bit too much credit on that. I think those were, I think I remember the tail end of, I think Emily Sonnet, I feel like I remember her kind of doing double duty in the USA and Spain. Might have that wrong. But even Sam Kerr, she played like an A-League season and then came and played for either Chicago or Western New York or something like that. That predates us a little bit. But yeah, there always is something. Dino knows I love a good sports radio topic. Rest versus rust, man, that's one of my all-time favorites. You can go to that well any day of the week.
Well, where do you land on that then?
I like rest. I think rest is good. I think when you have a good team and a good plan, I think you want rest. We're big NBA fans as well. And it's like, oh, well, this team, they swept their opponent and now they have 7 days before the finals starts. I'm like, okay, I think they'll be fine. And frankly, it's why England lost the men's Euros. It's because Spain had 1 extra day of rest. So, I mean, we can just, that's a known fact, because otherwise we would have won. But I digress.
Hold on, I'm jotting that down in the ITC personal record book. Spain, extra day off. Okay, noted. I actually fall on the rust side of it.
Nice.
With this specifically. Apologies, I ate a big vanilla ice cream before I come on the show. That's
can't blame you.
I mean, they're just so tasty.
Sure.
I actually fall on the rust side of this specifically because you're already dealing with going from club to international. You're playing unfamiliar teams. You're playing with unfamiliar teammates. I think the rhythm really matters. I think the reps really matter. And I think the rest is fine unless you have a bad result or two early in the group stage and you have to find yourself clawing your way back maybe against an Australia. So you really have to sustain super high level of play all the way through the group stage. You have to be just super sharp. And I think we're going to see 1 or 2 really good teams not get out of the group stage. I feel 100% confident about that. And I think the USA is definitely in that mix. Spain, as surprising as it might be, it's possible. I mean, I think the group is tricky. You miss a chance or two, and it's only 3 matches. It just is going to happen so quickly, and then such a short turnaround from match to match. I think teams are going to have to come in really, really sharp.
I'm with you on that. I think the rust and eliminating that rust as much as you can is essential for this tournament. The worst part of a tournament is it's here and gone really fast. But that's also the best part of a tournament, because if you can just get that momentum going and just build on it, you could be leaving with hardware in 2 weeks, which is nice. It's not this long drawn out process where, you're working for weeks and weeks trying to tinker and change things. You just want to get something that's kind of, 90% working for you and roll with it.
That makes a lot of sense. I definitely see the merits of that. Okay, now Bridie, you've earned more appearances. Not that you really care, but any kind of crappy sports radio topic that we have, we will absolutely call you in. Because if you're going to engage in a rest versus rust debate, wait till we start talking about must wins and any kind of stupid conceit possible. So I appreciate you playing along there.
I love it. I'm good for hockey, American football. Don't ask me about basketball. I like it, but I don't know how it works.
Okay, good to know. So getting back to Australia, I know they've had a few relatively recent matches, or at least in the matches that the national team came back to play for. What have you seen in Australia's side in the last few times that they've been able to kind of come together and play?
I think there's a lot of individual magic on that squad. They just have some insanely talented players that are really, really fun to watch. But I did see two things that were very concerning to me. One is they're really working on building out at the back, which is great. But a lot of the time they're pushing themselves wide and they're really struggling to get out of those areas. So that's definitely something that could be exploited. The other thing I saw was that in transition, they were having quite a bit of structural collapse. So you'd see the shape just kind of disappear and a lot of players start going towards the same ball or kind of moving to the same area. So I think maintaining that structure is going to be critical for them.
Makes a ton of sense. How big of a threat is Australia to the USA in this third matchup?
I don't feel as worried as I do about Germany, but again, it's the individual player magic that could really hurt them. If somebody like Fowler decides to just have the game of her life, there's not much you're going to do about it.
Yeah, Fowler is a great call out. That's the player I have my eyes on. I think fans of the program probably won't be too surprised considering she's a Manchester City player. That's not why I'm only watching for Mary Fowler. She's a great player. We spoke to the great Samantha Lewis of ABC Australia, and she had kind of talked about Fowler being one of those players where, and I saw it in multiple City matches, where sometimes she comes out and she has those performances where she just bosses the game and she's ripping shots on goal and she's playing players through. And then she has those other matches where it's kind of like, wait, Mary's out there? She's been out there for 60 minutes? And so, it kind of depends on what you're going to get. But if there was ever a time to have that breakout and to make yourself known on the international stage, I would say this Olympic tournament might be the time where Fowler wants to turn up and do that.
Yeah, I could see it, unfortunately.
She's got the skill.
Speaking of breakout players, Bridie, I'd be very curious your opinion on this. A lot of these players, even the younger players on the U.S. Women's National Team, sort of household names for people that are sort of like in and around the sport. Is there anybody on your radar? Doesn't have to be a young player, because this is sort of a transitionary period too with Emma Hayes. Is there anybody that you think is primed for a big time breakout this tournament?
I wouldn't say it's like fair to say breakout because, I mean, everybody knows she's fantastic, but Mallory Swanson, I really think when she got injured, I was at games watching her play in person, and I don't think she was getting the respect for the level that she was at. I think we're talking like maybe top 5 player in the world at that moment. She just looked so, I mean, not a complete player, but like her thing and what she does, she had it just dialed in so good. And I know she looks great right now. I just don't think she's quite there yet because I think we're kind of underestimating collectively just quite how good she was.
And that would be a frightening proposition because she has had multiple moments in the NWSL this season. She had a moment against Seattle where I watched from the press box where she goes from the top of the 18 in her defensive third and then drives the ball all the way down the field, resulting in a goal. She's a one-person offense.
100%. And it's wild that she seems to do it so instinctively, like the comfort to just say, okay, I know I'm that good. I know I can go do this. Like, wow.
Spectacular player. And to see her on the left, and Dino, you talked about it toward the beginning of the show, is that now that interchange, that interplay between her and Smith, that's got to be a little frightening for some of the opponents, I think.
Absolutely. I think Swanson's got to stay on that left side. She looks so good there. And it's the not knowing, is she going to set Smith up? Is she going to set herself up? It's just become so seamless when you have all these options.
I actually think Smith might be a really good candidate. Obviously, not quite the breakout. She's a former MVP, but we've talked a lot about her sort of uncovering a little bit more of her playmaking and passing on the show. Didn't see a ton of that early against Mexico. Some of it starts to seep out a little bit later. But I think, especially with Macario out, Lynn Williams coming in, I think there will be an opportunity for Sophie Smith maybe to notch a few assists, obviously get on the score sheet as well, carry this team, be a little bit of a hub, just because I think she can do it, even though she's not always doing it. And then obviously that sort of cranks up maybe the effectiveness of a Rodman, of a Swanson, even of you could sort of mix a lot of things up from there. So I was mentioning to Grant earlier, after the Macario injury, I was like, this could be Sophie Smith's. I'm trending towards Mount Rushmore of like U.S. Women's National Team players.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Like all the ingredients are there. She's got the right kind of support. And I think you hit it on the head. Like her game is changing. You can literally watch it change before your eyes. And there's no better coach to guide someone through that process.
Yeah, that's a good call. So tactically speaking, now that I know there's a fellow England supporter on this show, so if we're thinking about Smith, it's not quite like false nine-ish, but get a little more involved in the build-up, work those passing lanes. I have my thoughts and feelings on how Harry Kane performed in the men's Euros, but like Kane's ability to kind of come back, go to the ball, be more involved in the build-up. Is that a recipe? Does that make up for the lack of a 10? Kind of like piggybacking on Dino's question.
I think so. Personally, I've never felt like the 10 is that important. A lot of teams, when you don't have the best team, that might be where you slot your worst player. Oh, sorry. The 9. I was going to say the 9 to me. Let me restart.
Okay, I was about to be like, yo, that's spicy. What spicy take. Okay. So, okay, that makes sense.
All right, let me restart. So we've got Sophia Smith playing the 9 right now. I've personally never felt like that's really the most important role on a pitch. I kind of think you can stuff one of your less good players there and get away with it. So having her play more of that false 9, act like a 10, and attacking midfielder, she's got the skills to do it, and I think it would be a really smart, creative way to show a different look.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see, and it might be a matter of necessity now with Macario out there. And Dino, you brought up, if you have Swanson and Rodman out on the wings, now you have that kind of speed out there and the technical skill, the crossing ability, and you could see some of it in the Mexico match where Smith might, or sometimes you even saw like Swanson played the ball up to Smith on one run, and then Smith is just giving it back into Swanson's path. You shake the snow globe a little bit on the pitch, and they're kind of passing back and forth. And then you have this elite, super elite athlete like Rodman, who also happens to be a genius who can pick out passes at speed coming up the right. You could create some really, really interesting looks.
It's really interesting because I know I was talking earlier about, the U.S. has only been showing one look, but something I wouldn't be surprised with Hayes at all is to just, Rodman's got those pinpoint crosses. Maybe she does just start throwing them in and nobody's prepared for that. So the fact that the front 3 can be used in such different ways is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I love that point. I want to give the work you did also earlier the week, the USA-Mexico breakdown. Anybody that hasn't watched it, definitely go to Bridie's page and check it out. Super informative. The one point that I keep thinking about is the movement or lack thereof from the U.S. attacking players. Do you think that's something, and I think you also talked a little bit about maybe this team falling into some old habits offensively. Do you think that movement or lack thereof to kind of give these different looks, to be creative? Because when you think about a Spain, you think about a Japan, you just watch them. They're always in motion. You don't know where things are coming from. You don't know where things are going. It's got to be head on a swivel pretty much the entire 90 plus. Do you think cranking up some of that movement, sort of utilizing the intelligence of our attacking players to maybe move up, move back, move in, move out, move across, is that something that can be remedied in this short period of time?
No. I've got two things. I've got two things that I believe are really, really hard to fix once you start like aging, essentially, and it's getting your head up and it's fixing flat-footedness. Those things are really, really hard to coach out of players. I think the best thing that they can work on for fixing that movement inside the box is, like situational drills, small-sided drills. And I'm sure they're going through a ton of those right now, but it's one of those things where if it doesn't come to you instinctively, it can be a little bit difficult to build on. And I think that's why we saw Corbin Albert come in and look so good at that instantly. Not like Haran doesn't know what she's doing, but, that Champions League experience of breaking down a low block and having to be creative and move a lot, like it works.
That's a great point. And, there's just not a ton of time. So I want to get to a bonus question. We've talked a lot about number 10s. We've talked a lot about kind of like what that passing is going to look like. What is the distribution going to look like? You brought up in our show notes during our preparation from this, you brought up a player who you thought you might want to see in the send-off match. Now, for everybody listening, this is recorded before the Costa Rica match, so we're going to see how that looks. But I thought it was really interesting, Bridie. Can you get into a player that you're looking to see?
Yeah, Hal Hirschfeld for me is a huge one. She needs to get minutes before they go to the Olympics because absolute worst case scenario is she has to replace someone and her first international game is in a semifinal or a final. That's just not a fair situation to put a player into.
That would be tough. That gives serious vibes on the Savannah DeMello getting her first USA cap. I think that was in the send-off match. And then her second cap for Team USA being against Vietnam in the opening match of the World Cup. Not a great situation.
No, yeah. I can't even explain how significant that step from club to international is. And I'm sure Hayes knows. So I'm expecting to see her prepare her players.
I want to ask another bonus question, if I may. You bring up Hal Hirschfeld, as long as we're talking about the previous videos, which everybody should go check out on Busy Watching Women's Soccer on YouTube. You did a great video with great levity, I thought, kind of poking a little fun at yourself on players who you did not expect to get named to the roster, but who did get named to the roster. And you apologized to them. I'm sure they would accept your apology. One of those players is show favorite Croy Bethune, who, when I think about a number 10, that's what I think a number 10 should look and play like. You spoke glowingly about her on your show. She got a few minutes against Mexico. I thought she looked pretty good out there. Are we missing the forest through the trees, or however that expression goes? Like, should this be as simple as when Macario went down? Should they have replaced her with Croy Bethune?
If I'm just looking at film and I'm just doing it off like, hey, the last 5 games everyone has played, I think so. There's so much more going on behind the scenes. There's so much more in terms of like, your understanding of the game, your comfort being put in new situations. But from what I see on film at the club level, she looks super complete as a 10.
Absolutely, yeah. I was definitely excited to see her this past weekend against Mexico. I hate to go back to the same well, but didn't quite have the same pop as maybe a Lily Johannes against South Korea. Well, we'll talk about that later. But
Bridie is a Johannes appreciator as well. I believe you have a video talking about her after her debut.
Yeah, I'm a big old fan, so I was kind of expecting like this to be a bit like college recruitment and that they'd reach out and say, hey, do you want the alternate spot? And you guys did some good reporting here, but the one thing I did not consider is maybe not a great situation for her to go as an alternate and then, potentially not have a say in getting activated. So, maybe they should have just been a bit more daring and put her on the squad. How many times have we watched good men's tournaments where you have a 17-year-old come in and they just light it up and you're like, wow,
Yeah.
I think we just saw it. Sorry.
Yes. I think that's totally right. And Dino was on it pretty much from the beginning too. It's not even just the recruitment. That's a big part of it. She fits a huge need also. Like she's just like the physicality, the smarts, and the skills. It's hard to bang on too much on the roster construction. We've all talked about, but they have a lot of good players. But man, Bethune and Johannes, those feel like 2 players who you could really play together too.
That would be wild to see them starting for the U.S. at the next World Cup. I mean, I can see it. My question with Johannes is, does she want to be the centerpiece of a Dutch team? Or would she be the centerpiece of a U.S. team if she is here? It's just tough for her right now. It must be a good position to be in.
Yeah, worse spots to be for sure. I think we'll all definitely keep an eye on that. I have a take, and I want to gauge just exactly how spicy this take is. Watching the Mexico match this past weekend, USA, the field, I'm still kind of 50-50. I'm going to reserve the right to make my official show pick. I think if I had to pick today, I think I would take USA very begrudgingly, just because I think the ceiling is there, even though they're nowhere near the ceiling at this point. But as I was watching the Mexico match and fast forwarding, okay, maybe we get 5, maybe we get 6 matches, before this tournament's all said and done. I did have the notion that I don't think Lindsey Horan starts all 6 matches or all 5 matches. I think at some point, she gets bumped, and not for any kind of health reasons. I think we're going to start to see maybe some matchup, machinations. And I think we might see her give up her starting spot. Let me know the relative spiciness of that take and what you guys think.
I'm going to say moderate spicy. I don't think it's crazy based on what we saw from Mexico. You can't repeat that performance and expect to start every game of the Olympics. That would be nuts. But the Champions League experience gets me. There's one player on that pitch that played in a Champions League final for the U.S. They're going to need that.
Yeah, I'll say. It feels like like a medium wing, right? Like not as weak as mild, not quite your hot. But yeah, it feels medium spicy because I think, Bridie, you're totally right. Like if she plays like that against Zambia, then I think Emma Hayes has to start asking some real questions of like, okay, well, what kind of options do I have? Do my two holding midfielders, does it end up being Sonnet and Albert or something like that? Then you turn the pivot point from the old guard, the established, the world champion caliber players into the new guard of the team. That now falls on Crystal Dunn and Rose Lavelle at that point, I think. That's pushing the transition into the new era even further along, which I don't know if you consider that as you're in the tournament, you're just trying to win football matches. It would definitely be a compelling narrative and one that I have to imagine a lot of media outlets would pick up on. And I don't know if that plays into the calculus before you even make that decision.
Yeah, I can't say I've watched a ton of Chelsea games, but from what I've watched, Hayes seems very comfortable changing her lineup based on the matchups that she's looking for, and I would assume player performance. I have a feeling, if they have a result they don't like about Zambia, she's not going to be shy. You know, she's already looking ahead to the World Cup. If somebody's not going to offer her what she needs here, you can't play people that aren't helping you right now.
It's a great point.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think even when you think about the matchups, I think Zambia could be tough for Haran. Germany maybe a little bit less so because I think it's more like the European style, a little bit slower paced. I think it fits Haran's game a little bit better. And then coming back against Australia, or if you fast forward to, I think we did the math, and Japan might be looming in that first quarterfinal matchup. It could get really, I don't know. It's going to be tough for Emma Hayes here to kind of build this plane while it's in the air and figure out exactly what to do. I think you're right on the money with her tendency to switch up the lineups, definitely depending on matchups, and switch up a little bit of the game plan. I think, the first Barcelona matchup was totally that. It was a lot of Ashley Lawrence, Myra Ramirez just picking at, one side of the field until they were able to break through. So I think we'll see a little bit of that. And yeah, it could be, a heavy transitionary period. I think we might get late into this tournament, and that starting 11 might look a good deal different than how we, came into this tournament.
And that might be, honestly, best case scenario, really. I think if they want to go far, they're going to have to make adjustments from team to team.
I'll definitely be interested. I mean, it feels like the rotation of the pieces, I got to think, in the front of the pitch or, looking at the forwards and then looking at your back line, I like those a lot. Swanson, Smith, Rodman, that appears to work very well. And then that back line of Neiswanger, Germa, Davidson, Fox, that feels really good. And then Alyssa Nair, you already know what time it is. He's written in Sharpie. But do you think there could be matches where you don't play Neiswanger, or maybe you look at like a back three and you try to build the midfield a little bit? Or could you play Neiswanger at like an 8 or like a 6 if you want to try? Or do you just play her at like a wing back? Like how weird is Emma Hayes going to get in this tournament?
Oh, I'm not sure I can put 5'2" Neiswanger as an 8, but I would love to see her as a wing back in like a 3-back. I think that would be super effective for them. I don't know. I can't tell with these players yet how quickly you can switch up what they're doing, because the feel I'm getting right now is they want some of the same, like 75% of the same elements game to game to kind of feel comfortable and switch off and do their thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point. It's sort of like you see this with international tournaments where it's like, okay, we can't do everything. In theory, there's a lot of things that are possible with these players. We really have to kind of commit to a little bit of a philosophy. You saw this, I think, a little bit against Mexico as well. All the subs were pretty much like for like. It was like, we're not going to mix anything up. We're just going one for one, boom, boom, boom. And let's swap out the pieces and run the playbook. I think we're definitely going to see some lineup variants. I'll be really interested to see how much strategic or tactical variance we see as the tournament reaches, its finale there.
Yeah, and that's what I'm really curious about. Tactically, how much change is there and how capable are they of managing that change?
Bridie, really appreciate you joining the show. I want to get you out of here on this question. I want to see if you have a gold medal prediction. Obviously, we know a lot can happen with the brackets. I think what makes it tricky is like first and second kind of puts you on one side of the bracket or the other. Who knows what can happen? So we won't hold you to it. But if you are taking the field, which team would you pick walking away with that gold medal?
I might have to hide my face while I say it because I know it's the obvious answer, but Spain, I think even if they're tired, even if the pieces aren't all still connecting, the creativity is immense. And what really gets me is when teams are able to play in 3 dimensions, when you stop looking at the pitch as a series of, diagonal or straight lines, and you start seeing the opportunities for the curl and the curve and all the little intricacies that make that game so beautiful. They just have such a handle on it. And there's just games where they just look like they're kids playing and having fun. And it's so hard to fight that.
So do you think in a head-to-head, you think Spain's got what it takes to get past USA?
It could be either team, but if I'm just basing it based on, like film, historical performance, where do I think we're at right now? Where do I think they're at right now? I think Spain is certainly the better, more complete team.
Let me do the sports radio guy thing here, and I'll try to crank up the spice of it a little bit. I don't know how close it is, man. I think Spain heads up versus USA. I don't think it's particularly close right now, as things stand today, with no Bethune, with no Johannes. To Bridie's point, they start playing, they look like Barcelona. And now, like we've talked about the benefit of having that many club players who play in the same club. Now, just imagine you put Olga Carmona on Barcelona, and she still plays with that team, with that level of chemistry. You cannot account for that, especially when we're talking about in these small windows for the national teams to get together. They have such a defined identity with the way they play. And I don't think I've ever heard it in those terms, Bridie, of you talking about playing it even in 3 dimensions, where it's not just a series of diagonal passes. They play over top of you. They play around you. They curl the ball into interesting spaces. They just have a way of playing that you then start to take off players. And it's not just I'm taking off good players and putting on more good players. I'm putting on more good players who also play the exact same way. The last point I want to make in this rambling answer is I thought there was some really good commentary on, again, I'll do a quick diversion to the men's game, in the Spain-England match, where England was looking to put on subs who would change the game for England. And Spain put on subs to play the exact same way that they like to play. And they all know how to play that way. The world champions, as we sit right now, they have that exact way of playing. I think if they went heads up against the USA, I think we might be looking at a 3-1 or a 2-0 or something like that. Because if you can't get the ball, then you can't score.
Yeah, when you simplify it like that, there's not much more to it. You do need the ball.
It is an ironclad fact. I stand by that. I don't know where that falls on the spicy meter, but you can't score without the ball.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. That's Spain back 4, man. Like Carmona, Batier, Paredes, Catacoya in goal. Like she's just a big game goalie. She's just tough to beat. Like they're not going to give it to you. They might give away 1 goal this entire tournament. You're going to have to just beat them flat out. I'm ready. Now I'm ready. Maybe ready to walk back my USA pick. But we'll see. There's a lot of time between now and the tournament. All right, team. Anything else we want to hit before we get out of here?
Can't wait. I can't wait.
It's going to be an absolute banger, man. I mean, just every single match I look at. I've talked myself into Australia, Germany. I may have been a total fraud when I said Australia, Germany is my second most opening game that I'm looking forward to. Like, I want to see USA, Zambia. But Australia, Germany, there's a lot on the line. You want to talk about cruddy sports radio narratives. Must win for Germany if you look at it. There are going to be a lot of questions asked after that match. And you can just go down the line. All these teams, all these matchups, you're just going to get banger after banger.
Yeah, that's what we love.
Absolutely. All right, team. I think we did it. This has been another episode of Into the Channel. Thank you for watching, listening, liking, subscribing, just plain hanging out. And remember to like if you liked. Subscribe or follow Into the Channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen. Links to socials in the show notes. And a big thank you to my co-host, Mr. Grant Angle. He took the field, much like our esteemed guest, Bridie, did. We're not going to hold that against him. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you, Bridie, as well, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Likewise, buddy. Always good talking to you. Thank you again to our esteemed guest, Bridie O'Toole. And you know what? Even though we took the field, in this podcast, we're always one team. We have heart and guts, like every sports radio cliche that you could ever have. And so we will be busy watching women's soccer. And so we will talk to you guys very soon.